We are mucus-free. We are mucus-free.
All right, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Professor Spira, and you are now plugged into the Mucus-free Life Podcast. Yeah, this is the 4th episode, and I've been enjoying these. I really enjoy coming out and talking about some of the issues of the day, not doing as many of the old lecture style things that I will still do and do from time to time, but it's nice to talk about topical things and stuff that's on people's minds, and as I often have an opinion on these type of things. And recently in the news I saw some things about the so-called Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat and all of these kind of things, so I thought that I would give a talk or discuss that issue, because the secret word for today is nuance. And oftentimes there's very little nuance I see in the way people discuss diet. And of course, we're the ones that bring the transition diet discussion to the table. But when you're not dealing with transition, you know, there's people want to take this black and white approach to diet, and you know, the foodless diets, as I call it. Here's a list of foods that are forbidden. Here's a list of foods that's okay by whoever made the list. And the Mucusless Diet Healing System is not like that at all. It is a system, a systematic approach to transforming your physiology, going from mucus forming foods to predominantly non-mucus forming foods, using things like short-term fasting, colon irrigation, sunbathing, etc., a number of other things that can help us transition and transform our body. But speaking of this idea of nuance, let's look at the etymology. One of my favorite things to do when I was getting into studying in depth all of these different ideas and things. If there's one thing that you could do that would take your self-education to a whole different level, study the origin of words, study the etymology of words, the definition of words. I used to sit down with a dictionary and I didn't just read straight through the dictionary. I like to do, kind of create your own adventure through the dictionary. So if you take a word, if I was to take this word nuance from 1781, from the French nuance, meaning slight difference or shade of color, from the noor, meaning to shade, from nu, meaning cloud. So and that's already super interesting. So you're used to hearing this word nuance, but now we're getting into this idea of clouds. You know, the origin of this word, this kind of clouds, nuba, Latin nubes, a cloud, mist, vapor, fog, and clouds. So this idea of something that is not black and white, it's gray, it's moving, it's in flux. Definition from Merriam-Webster on nuance, we have a subtle distinction or variation, a subtle quality or sensibility to, awareness of, or ability to express delicate shadings as of meaning, feeling, or value. Sensibility to, awareness of, or ability to express delicate shadings. So why am I saying that? That's the secret word. Those of you that, anybody else that's my age that grew up with a little Pee Wee Herman will know what I'm talking about there. So nuance is the secret word today. You say whatever you hear the word, scream real loud. But nuance, okay. But nuance is like a missing link out here, because transition diet is all about nuance. So I want us to consider when we start talking about the processed vegan foods and the soy products and that kind of thing, to understand that I bring a nuance to this discussion. And we'll get a little bit into, there's some versions of the Mucusless Diet Healing System that recommended or had this substance called Protos, which was a meat gluten, an early meat alternative kind of thing that would be used not forever, not extended periods of time, not every day, but for somebody coming from a terrible diet to use some of these processed vegetarian or vegan foods as a part of the transition. But you don't eat the things by themselves. You always have a big raw salad, as you'll hear me constantly say, the cooked or stewed vegetables, that kind of thing is going to help this stuff move through. And I did use some of these things. So that's one aspect. It's you don't have to use those tools. And what's happening now, the way they're making them, they're getting worse and worse in terms of the ingredients that are being used and that kind of thing, as we will see. But it's, as I say, nuance. It's not black and white just to say, okay, you're on the Mucusless Diet Healing System, you could never, ever use that type of thing. You could never use some kind of vegan processed meat or something like that. The other side of this dichotomy is the folks that saying that oh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's so much better that even if the stuff is bad, and we know it's not the greatest, it's better than killing the animals, and it's better than it's okay. Let's just get the whole society strung out on the fake meat, slimy, garbagey garbage, and it's we're fighting climate change and blah 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 blah. Everything is so much better. That's an attitude that has no interest in trying to transition, transform, elevate outside of just we're here to help the animals. Now, my argument here that some of the ethical vegans don't really like, but the way I see it is, as long as you have folks that if you dedicate your life, there's some folks that eat that every day. If you're eating the kind of processed stuff every day over time, and you're not doing enemas, you're not practicing Mucusless diet, over time, this stuff, the slime residue of these foods build up in your GI tract, in your system, in your colon. And what happens to a lot of so-called vegetarians, and what is happening to a number of vegans for various reasons, is folks are going back. And when they go back, it's not pretty. It's going all the way back to a worse diet than when they started their adventure into plant-based world. And so my message is one of transition. It's one of understanding and using these tools that we have at our disposal so that we can transform our physiology and take this journey somewhere. We want to be able to sustain and take this. It's not a overnight thing. It's not a quick fix. It's not all you need to do is just eat nothing but fruit for the rest of days. It's not all you need to do is just eat processed vegan junk food no. Nuance. All about the nuance. How do we use these tools to take things to the next level? So I want to talk about, there's two major brands right now. There's kind of the plant-based fake meat wars, and so we have the so-called Impossible Burger on one side, and you are finding these in vegan and vegetarian restaurants. Things like there's a Whopper, I think, that I don't know if it's out everywhere yet, but I'd read that the Burger King has got the Impossible Whopper. I'm not sure if the Impossible is what's at White Castle, which is a burger joint chain in some parts of the country. So that's the Impossible Burger. And then what you started to see, I don't know, a year or two ago, maybe in stores, is the Beyond Meat, which instead of using wheat-based or soy-based protein, they are using pea protein. And so that's kind of the thing. Let me go. There's a quick video. This is from a Minneapolis news broadcast, and they kind of get into the details of this. So let's take a look here at this.
Are becoming more and more popular. Some Twin Cities restaurants even report being sold out of the Impossible Burger.
And since the company Beyond Meat went public last month, its stock price has gone up 600%. So what is in meatless meat? Good question. Heather Brown took people on a taste test.
So what do you think?
I actually really liked it.
We asked people to compare My Burger's Impossible Burger to beef.
It tastes very similar to the normal burger.
I think it's pretty comparable. It's not beef.
It's not beef.
Wait, really? Are you serious?
No, I'm serious. There are two big players in this meatless space, Impossible, which is mostly in restaurants.
It tastes a lot like meat.
And Beyond Meat, which is more in grocery stores.
What is in Beyond Meat?
Well, there's a lot of things.
Tyler Lorenzen is president of Minneapolis-based Purus.
Beyond Meat's plant-based meat that's powered by pea protein.
Purus makes pea protein powder.
We ultimately extract that protein out.
It's a key ingredient in Beyond Meat. Also in there, other plant proteins, canola oil, beet juice.
And the beet juice is to mimic the redness that you find in animal meat.
How is the Impossible Burger different?
Yeah, so the Impossible Burger doesn't have pea protein in it.
Instead, Impossible uses soy protein and a molecule called heme.
Heme is what makes meat taste like meat.
So similar practices, but different starting material.
The meatless companies talk a lot about what their products could mean for the environment.
The climate change, natural resource use.
And there is debate.
Highly polarizing and highly argued.
On what's nutritionally healthier. Here's registered dietitian Sue Moores.
I would say probably they're really quite close.
Calories, fat, and saturated fat are similar. The meatless has more sodium, the meat has more cholesterol.
But much more of a driver in terms of impact on health, particularly heart health, is more about saturated fat. And so if somebody is a big beef eater and they would put some of this in to sort of balance that scale, then that's a good thing. Does it need to take the place of all red meat? No, because there's great things in beef.
I kind of look at his burger, and that one looks good too.
Heather Brown.
But the taste of this was good enough, and I would order it again.
WCCO 4 News.
Heather also talked with the Minnesota Beef Council today, and they said to remember that their product has one ingredient versus the meatless, which can have up to 20 ingredients.
All right, wait, I have a special message here. Somebody's calling in. Let's see what they have to say.
It's a trap!
Okay. So, all right, so that's just to give a little context of what's going on with that. So, years ago, I predicted that in the future we would have fast food joints, McDonald's and Burger King and all these type of places would start to sell plant-based, alternative, whatever you want to call it, the fake meat stuff. And back when I first was saying it, people were just, because it seemed like something that was so far away. So I'm talking like 2003, 2004, real early on in the practicing the Mucusless diet. I predicted that one day in the future, a lot of things, that's going to be part of a worldwide transition, and it's going to be an incredibly slow transition, even though it's actually a little faster than I had anticipated. I can tell you what's probably going to happen, but I have trouble with the timing. My prediction of timing, I never claimed to have a good prediction of timing, but I've rarely been wrong. If I say something's going to happen, it usually happens. So it's actually happening sooner than I anticipated, but I knew that sometime in the future we're going to start to see it, and maybe it's right on track in terms of the timing, because it's not at all burger joints yet. You know, we're seeing the introduction to places like when you got Burger King and McDoodles and Taco Hell and these guys, and I guess it's White Castle and all whatever, and big restaurants that are starting to make. I mean, you didn't have none of that. There was no. If you went someplace and you wanted like a plant-based thing, maybe a restaurant would have kind of some nasty vegetable patty that was often held together with egg stuff, and it was rough if you were trying to go out and do that. And that's why the folks that continued in the lifestyle of staying and going to restaurants and stuff tended to not really have a chance going down the Mucusless diet path, because it was way too easy to you walk into the restaurant with the best intentions, and then it's way too easy to just, there's a little cheese in there, a little cross-contamination here, and I'll be all right. And then, you never are getting anywhere. So, again, part of my personal transition was cutting out restaurants. And so I went probably almost 14, 15 years of not eating at a restaurant once, and I finally had checked out a vegan. There was went with a friend to a vegan restaurant, and there's a couple around here, and so I kind of went to check out the salad and stuff. But I went years and years where I just refused to go into any kind of restaurant setting. I mean, I just was not. That whole dynamic of being served by someone coming up, like there's something that's just very. Once I got into the Mucusless diet, it just did not feel good. It was weird. It's a weird thing to me. And back then, there with no options, you couldn't say, "Oh, get me such and such." Now you can go into a lot of restaurants and they'll have some kind of soy patty or like the Impossible Burger or whatever. I still wouldn't trust it, because how do you know, unless it's like an all vegan type of space, how do you know they're not doing cross-contamination and so on and so forth? But so just for me personally, a part of why I was successful in the early days on my transition was one of the hardcore decisions I made in terms of transition. And so look at this. Here's how the difference kind of nuance and mentality. So on one hand, there are some people that are holding on to going to restaurants, but they're like, no, but I'm going to keep going to restaurants. But then they're going to maybe the vegan and the vegetarian places or that kind of thing. And it's making it hard for them to transition, because you go to those places and all of a sudden there's access to all this stuff. And it's hard to just stay with something super simple. You're like, yeah, let me try that. Well, that looks interesting. That kind of thing. So in my case, I said, okay, there are some of those kind of items that I'm going to use, but I have to make it. So I'm not going to be going to a restaurant and having them prepare it. I'm going to make the stuff. Let's take a look at an old version of the Mucusless Diet Healing System, and kind of get deeper into is this something that could be used if you're going by the book, so-called book, the Mucusless Diet Healing System. To what extent can this type of fake meat kind of stuff be used? Should it be used? How would you use it? That kind of thing. So now we're getting into something that is a bit I don't know if you want to say controversial. It's just something that there hasn't been a lot of discussion on it, because there's not a whole lot of people that have digged deeply into the different editions of the Mucusless diet. There's really only one other person that I know of right now that does this similar kind of work in research and analysis. So what we're going to put on the monitor here. This is the 1924 6th edition, which this one right here. That's what it looks like. 1924 6th edition. So what you notice with these early editions, the oldest I have a second edition. That's the oldest version of the Mucusless diet in existence that I know of. I've never seen a first edition, and I can tell you that the second edition is quite different from the fourth edition, and then the fourth edition is different from the sixth edition. And these editions were updated probably by Fred Hirsch. And so it's an interesting conversation for us to have within the mucus-free community as to so-called, what is the book? When you say, well, I go buy the book, well, which edition are you talking about? Because the majority of people that have been exposed to the Mucusless Diet Healing System were exposed to one of the editions that Fred Hirsch had took some liberties with, or I mean, say some liberties, but he makes a note where he changes some things, at least in one part. And this is the part. So we're in the vegetarian lessons section. This is so here, this is the cooked vegetable recipes. So there's an item in these early versions called Protos, which is a wheat gluten early meat substitute, old school kind of stuff. This stuff called nuttolene. And so right here we got this mock ham loaf, 1 pound nuttolene, fourth a pound Protos, 4 teaspoons sativa or vegex. So one of the reasons why in later editions this was totally changed, like this section was updated over the years because they used brand names of things that went out of existence over the years. So vegex, I don't think that I don't think that was around. Maybe it is, I don't know. But nuttolene and some of these things, it's like, yeah, they might still make versions of it, but it's hard to find that kind of thing. And there was a few other things like that, but you'll notice that Protos is used quite a bit, and in the annotated version I make note of this, and so I say that Protos is used. There's Protos cutlets, 1 pound of savory loaf, 1 cup bran flakes. I mean, it's some stuff in here that would be eliminated later, and so this is a more advanced analysis that we could get into one day, which we do get into a little bit in the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course. We got to see Protos hash, Protos stew, so Protos or other nut food. So there's various ways to look at this. You could either look at this as Fred Hirsch doing something horrible and he added these things that never should have been added, a menu, or look at it as I tend to do. You have Professor Arnold Ehret's work, and then you have the editor taking a few editorial liberties, and over the years updating and changing a menu or a recipe book. This is considered, the recipe book section. So personally, so that's just some background context. When I started practicing the Mucusless diet, and I was hanging out with Brother Air, and he had told me that he did for his family that was early on in their transition, he would let them use a little bit of some of the fake meat, soy product kind of stuff. But he cautioned and said that's not something that you want to mess with too deeply or for too long. Is for within the context of transition, you can use this stuff a little bit, but it's easy to get strung out on it if you're not careful. So for me, if I was craving something really bad, so I'm craving, my technique with that really, I didn't want to try and use the fake meat when I craved meat. So I actually didn't really use the fake meat until I had gotten over my addiction to actual meat. Now think about that. Now that was the decision that I made in terms of the art of my transition, where that made sense. I don't want to try and psych myself out and convince myself that I'm eating real meat when it's this fake whatever stuff. Instead, I'm just going to look at this stuff as its own food. its own stuff, its own little entity. And so by the time I really started experimenting with the soy based stuff and all that kind of stuff, I had already really was kind of off of meat. You know, it wasn't having a lot of those meat cravings and things. While we're on it, I'm going to read a little excerpt from my book Spira Speaks. And so now we're moving into, this is my journey, the way that I use these things, which is I use within the context of the transition diet. And so let's take a look here. So there's a section, Mucus Lean Menus for Terrible Cravings. And I'm having a talk about here. This was when Samantha was going through some really crazy cravings as early on in the transition and stuff that she's just craving all this stuff. And so I say, sounds like you're really you're ready to hear more about the nitty gritty of the transition. I'll give you a few of the combinations that help me along with approaches I've observed others use. I do not strongly recommend or suggest avoiding these. Just tuck the ideas away for what I refer to as the crackhead days, when you are in the supermarket craving insane stuff. If you don't crave or need any of these things and can go straight into a raw mucusless program, then go for it. However, I've yet to see anyone not pass through some version of this transition period and sustain a long-term mucus-free lifestyle. To get through this period, I had to adopt a survivalist, quote, by any means necessary kind of attitude. Nothing was going to prevent me from practicing the mucusless diet at its highest level possible. I drew my strongest inspiration from John Coltrane and endeavored to practice the diet on the level he practiced music. I mention this only to convey the challenge of this path. Okay, now for the nasty. You are familiar with the cleaner menus, the combination salad, fruits, raw and steamed starchless vegetables, etc., which are the mainstays. Then I go through some of my early transition menus. I won't read all this. I think I mentioned that when I was really getting off of meat, I was using Raisin Bran. I ate a lot of Raisin Bran with soy milk, and I don't. And see the what's useful about these case studies is not to do exactly what I did, but to get first of all a realistic perspective of what this can actually look like for real, not the sanitized version that most people are going to share with you of what they're doing. Or what they say that they did or whatever, but the real, like, okay, this is transition, because that thing I ate that stuff maybe for no longer than 2 years. Within the first year, I pretty much was off of that type of that because I couldn't take it anymore in my stomach. But that kind of cereal stuff, but it was a tool that really helped me out. The baked banana surprise, all that kind of stuff. Let's see, transitioning off of fast food. Probably talk about, well, that was the Taco Bell vegetarian days. In the early, within those first, and for my first year of the transition, I'd say the whole year. It was really that first 6 months, but that spring, I started diet in the fall, and then I went crazy that following spring. For like a month, I was just eating all kinds of like vegetarian stuff. And I'd go to Taco Bell and I'd get like 3 of the bean burritos with no cheese and have them put extra lettuce in it. And then I think I had these sun chips or something, and I'd get that and I'd go to a park and I'd eat this stuff, and I feel so terrible afterward. But and so I'm not telling anybody else to do this. I've worked with a ton of people that have never had to do that, but they weren't me, and where I was coming from is bad. The amount of food that I used to eat, it wasn't that I just ate less than optimal choices. I ate tons of food, and so my transition had to deal with that accordingly. So I needed something that was going to be like, kind of heavy on me and have massive amounts of something, and so that was one of the things that helped. The beans was big. Okay, so I'm gonna just go through these just while we're here. So the Nature Burger, I got real into this Nature Burger. This fantastic brand, Nature Burger. It's hard to find now. You can order it online, that kind of thing. But I would get into these Nature Burgers. So I think Brother Airhead, he had first talked about, he had let me know about that. He's like, well, members of his family are using this stuff, and he kind of just, cause he already knew where the cravings were going. Like, he had been there, so he could tell me. It was like he would give me the information right before I would have a major craving in that direction, or as I'm going through something, and he would say, well, it's a hell of a combination if you're really craving something terrible, that Nature Burger and some of that mayonnaise or whatever, that kind of thing. And so I got into some serious Nature Burger stuff, and the connection to the to a transition diet, mucusless diet type of thing, is one of the recipes. Eric talks about, if you are going to use rice, if you cook the rice, or if you soak the rice and let the slime kind of exit out of it and drain it, and then put it into a patty and fry it, you cook out a lot of the stickiest and most dangerous properties of the rice. And so essentially Nature Burger is sort of a rice / wheat glutinous type of thing. So and again, so I'm not recommending this. You could, if you're into, you can make your own versions of this if you're there. See, I wasn't nowhere near that to be able to make my own. I just wouldn't have done that, back when I was into the diet. So I'm being realistic and real about where I was at and what was happening. So I wasn't going to get a cookbook and go get it's like, okay, make a Nature Burger at home and put all the and have a food I didn't have a food processor, all that, so for me, this was something that really helped me out when it was time, when I was having some crazy cravings and was ready to, just my stomach is ready to go on back. And this was a way for me to, say, no, I'm not going back. Let's deal with this. Then I got this section, messing with soy products. So that's what I wanted to get to, and said, I also messed with some of the soy products in this mode. The Go Lean soy burger meat was made into patties or put into tomato sauces. Soy lunch meats were put on top of salads or even cooked with a saute. In fact, soy ham, turkey, and pepperoni saute and put on to toast with soy butter and mayo kicked my butt for a while. It was bringing back memories, man. The cooked Dagwood lunch meat sandwich with all the meats, several kinds of cheese. Well, I used to get that at Penn Station. It's Dagwood. It was like all the meats, extra cheese, extra mayo. That was my thing. So I was like craving that. And so I kind of made these little things at home that was kind of, that was just sort of, that was kind of reminiscent of some of those things. Let's see, such soy items could also find their way on the top of a vegetarian pizza. So I went through a vegetarian pizza, vegan pizza phase. Getting off of meat with, and then I talk about the 100% wheat spaghetti, which I won't get into here. So I share all that just to give you some realistic context and some nuance, and to understand that, yes, I used these things early on in my transition because I needed to, but they didn't hang around for a long time. It wasn't something that I ate every day over and over again. It wasn't something that I thought in my head that, okay, this is a part of my lifestyle for a long time, I'm gonna be eating that. No. A lot of these things within the first year to 2 years, I was done with it. And if I did come back to it, it would be really short periods of time, maybe once or twice a year. So again, think about the logic of that type of transition. So I'm going from where I could go and sit down and eat 2 footlongs with chili and cheese, a cheeseburger, a root beer float, and a bag of popcorn at the neighborhood root beer stand in Sharonville, Ohio, where I do that every week, at least once a week. So I'm going from where I eat like that, or I could eat an entire pizza by myself, large double pepperoni, extra cheese, ham, and bacon pizza by myself, one of them. So I'm coming from that, and I spend 1 or 2 years where I'm eating this nature burger kind of stuff, and again, huge salads, big cooked mucus-free stuff. I got my cooked mucus-free fruits, which is of course helping me, my baked banana surprise. So I do that for a couple years. Then maybe year 4, I do nature burger maybe for 1 month. Maybe year 5 or year 6, I only do nature burger for a week. And every time we get further and further away, I'm only using those things once. Very rarely, until you get to a point where I've been off of wheat products, I don't know, is it how many years, 5 years or something, where I just totally got off of it, stopped using the 100% wheat toast and all that kind of stuff. So understand the trajectory of that style of transition, where there's a logic to that, to permanently get off of something to where there's no craving left for it. You know, I always liked one of the techniques that Brother Air used, which was to eat, if you were craving something, just to eat something until you just didn't crave it at all anymore. It's like you ate something, you didn't feel guilty about it, you just dealt with it within the context of the details of the transition. You dealt with it and kept on going. And if you're doing the enemas, lemon juice and distilled water enemas, which I regularly did every day, was doing them, that helped just move this stuff along. So the slimy stuff I was eating wasn't hanging around for a long time to sit in there. And then my body started taking me. I never forced myself to fast. I didn't force myself to do 6-month-long juice fast. That's not a part of the Mucusless diet. I don't, say anything in regards to Mucusless diet for when I started doing those at a particular point in my transition. My body led me to that based on having did 24-hour fast by the book, doing the 2-day, 3-day, 4-day fast, and then which in the early days for me would sometimes trigger cold and flu-like symptoms. As my body, once I started going down the path, my body wanted to throw off all this stuff, wanted to get rid of it. And so I see some people, some folks are so sensitive, and they get just a little sniffle, and they're so concerned. They're so like, I thought this was supposed to be. I'm like, man, get ready. I used to go through boxes of tissues. I'll talk about all that in Spira Speaks, which we was just looking at. But the point is that there's different plateau points. This is a dynamic journey. This isn't a straight line, as I talk about in one of my articles, this cyclical idea where there's ups and downs, but through the ups and downs, you always want to be cycling upward. There's ups and downs. This whole time there's gonna be some ups and downs, but you want to just continue to cycle upward. So with all of that, when we talk about this, the Impossible Burgers and the I use the Go Lean, we got the Beyond Meat, all this kind of stuff. I recommend a mindset to not be comfortable. When you're eating that kind of stuff, understand, first put it into context with the transition and make sure it's eliminating. Because I could tell the difference between certain, like one brand of soy burger versus another, totally eliminated different. And so I would get the one that eliminated the best. And the way that I could tell if it was eliminating good or not, If I had a bowel movement and it smelled like death, then I'm like, okay, this is probably not a good transitional tool for me. But if I, eat another brand and it doesn't smell as bad and it's not leaving behind, I don't have to sit there and wipe forever. It's kind of coming off halfway clean. And I didn't have indigestion and this kind of stuff, heartburn in my throat. And then that means that was eliminating well for the time. Something that eliminates well today doesn't necessarily mean it's going to eliminate well tomorrow or next week or next month. So this is the kind of intensive work that we're doing with permanently transitioning away from these kinds of foods. And so the nuance here is to say that we don't necessarily, that these things can be used sometimes. Now you want to do your research and find, I don't know, this Impossible one is kind of nasty, and there is some articles on the GMO ingredients of it and all that kind of stuff. So I won't even get into all that. I'm not going to get into the farming stuff and all that kind of stuff. That's other people talk about that stuff all day. I'm interested in what we have available as tools. If you are more advanced or you are already into, maybe you've studied raw foodism or you're coming, you don't even have to, and you don't have any kind of cravings for this kind of stuff, then you don't need to use these tools. There are a lot of tools. I want you to start looking at these food choices, menus, and food combinations as tools. And not every tool in the toolbox is needed all the time, and for each person and for every job. One job might need, okay, I need this. I need this type of screwdriver. Another job might, okay, I need this hammer. Being educated on the transition diet and the Mucusless Diet Healing System is being educated about the tools that you have at your disposal that you can use for your transition when needed, and the study of understanding what is available to you, and the self-research that you do on your own body to figure out what eliminates well, what doesn't eliminate well. All of these things are part of the transition. By any means necessary, transitioning to the next level, And again, you're going through periods where you're 100% mucus free. You go through periods where you might be juice fasting, and you are doing all of these various things, eating nothing but fruit for a week or whatever. You might go through those kinds of things, but understand that when it hits the fan and you hit the glass ceiling and you can't go no further, and remember what good old Professor Spira had to say about transition, and come on back and get into this methodology. You do have to do a little work. You have to do your own research, because we're not going to just tell you what you need to eat. You got to look into these different tools that we're talking about. Now, of course, what's nice is we got all this stuff in the books. We got Spira Speaks and the Annotated Mucusless Diet, Rational Fasting. I've tried to make the material easily available. There's a link below. If you want to get all 7 of the books at one time, the Mucus-free Life Ultimate Book Bundle, you can do that. I'm still signing autographs in the top paperback version. There's a version where you can get all the paperback editions. It's called the Ultimate Everything. All the paperback editions, all of the PDF versions. What I like about the PDF versions as well is it allows you to so it's of course you want it's great to have the book in your hand, but that's why I like that Ultimate Everything package, because you get both, the best of both worlds. So it's good to hold it in your hand, but it's also nice to be able to sometimes just whiz around on an electronic document, or if you're doing research, somebody is talking about, okay, well, let's look up soy is not in this is rational fasting, But if we're looking at hair and you do a search for, that is not where I need to. First, I need to hit Control F. Then the find comes down. And if I'm looking for a topic, so it's okay, hair, and so you could whiz through these documents to find what you need. So I like having the PDF at your disposal as a tool, having the paperback versions at your disposal as a tool, and there you go with it's. It's to me, yeah, a lot of this is about tools, getting the information that you need and using the information as a tool. This is all about finding the right tools for you, the right transition. And so let's see here. Didn't mean to do that. So okay. So that's kind of all that's mostly what I got to say about the whole Impossible Burger, Beyond Meat, all that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of the mentality that a lot of the so-called vegans and vegetarians and those folks are kind of getting bamboozled. You know, they're getting wrong, because anytime when the same people that make that are producing and making regular burgers, you know, now they're in the industry, they started to see, okay, wow, this vegan thing isn't going to go away anytime soon. A lot of people are plant-based, whatever term you want to use, it's not going away anytime soon. We need to capitalize on that. We're not going to make a whole lot of money selling apples and oranges, grapes and plums. So let's create some very addictive fake stuff that we can sell these folks and get them. And one of the reasons, you know, it's funny when on that video we watched a little earlier, and the woman, of course, she's like, you know, you still get your meat, you know, but this can supplement the meat. Okay, so that's where you get off into bizarro world right there. That as soon as the nutritionists or the doctors start talking, it's just like it just sounds like you know, just nails on a chalkboard. I mean, just, you know, just like, man, that what she said was just so stupid. But in terms of just using these things within the context of a transition, again, you do your research, try to find the cleanest that you can find that has the least amount of crazy things in it, and always observe the elimination and use it only if you need it. But like I said, I kind of put all that stuff in here as far in terms of my personal, because some stuff I forget. That was one of the reasons I wanted to write it all down, was the practical transitional stuff that I personally went through on the journey. Because there's nobody that practices Mucusless Diet that's just, there's no such thing as like perfect. It is about the journey. It's about the transition. So let's see what's going on. So let's check out the folks down here in the chat. And what are you guys up to over here? Let's see if there's any questions for me, or I say hi to everybody. What's going on, Levi? What's going on? Momo Soulful, yeah. What's up, Doug? Greetings, Doug. Greetings, Cloud Spirals. And Thunderbird says, never understood the concept of trying to make vegetarian food taste like meat products. Yeah, that's like I said, I really avoided getting too deep into that stuff until I really didn't have a huge taste for that. See, the difference, I would have a craving for the heaviness, but not for that taste of that meat. You know, I noticed that the kind of stuff I was really craving was the salt. It was like all of the condiments that you would put on the meat. It was the salt and the seasonings and, you know, the mayonnaise kind of stuff and all, you know, the vinegary condiments. You know, that would be the stuff I would really start craving. And And so I just observed that. And, you know, Eric talks about the condiments. He says, look, let's put this stuff into context and be reasonable. It's way better if you're going to have something bad and you are craving some mustard or ketchup or mayonnaise or something like that. It's way better to use that than it is to, you know, eat the whatever it was that you thought you were craving. You know, have a big chunk of meat or something like that. But yeah, it's a strange thing. But that is, you know, that's the world we live in. You know, bizarro world. See, Classic Man says, what about eating too much fish because of the type of mercury that they consume? Well, I'm not into eating fish at all. I'm not into using fish as a transitional tool on any level. So if you're looking for things that are hardcore about my approach or something, I mean, to me, that's not hardcore. But for me, fish is out immediately. No transition with fish. And for me, just my recommendation, fish should be immediately eliminated from the diet. But that's my opinion. And that was also, it was pretty clear in the Mucusless Diet Healing System, from Eric's perspective. Those kind of things you would be wanting to get off of that stuff pretty quick. So when you start getting into the mercury poisoning and all this kind of poisoning of the fish, we're not even trying to use that stuff anyway. So as we talk about in some of the videos, what is the filthiest kind of meat that you can consume? Fish is the nastiest stuff that you could put in your body, you know, to in that food realm, as far as I'm concerned, because, you know, as Brother Air says, now you're eating something that is swimming around and existing in the same stuff that it defecates in and you know, and eliminates and you know, you get it as soon as people go fishing and you get it and it's all, you're wiggling around. As soon as it comes out the water, it already doesn't smell good. You know, it smells like what? You know, fish. That's usually a pejorative kind of idea of something smelling bad. If it smells like fish, it doesn't smell very good. And so, so fish is something I'm not a fan of at all. I don't recommend using it at all for transitional purposes. We got a lot of other tools that we can use to, you know, get away from that. You know, that fish is just pure pus, just pure pus, and so we don't need that. Obacon Jones, what's going on, my brother? How you doing? Let's see. The carnivore diet is really done out of spite because no human ever ate primarily meat. That had to be done by an ex-vegan/fruitarian. Oh yeah, these diets that we got, these paleo stuff, and I look at it like the start off with the Atkins diet in the 90s, and then paleo was kind of a reworking of that type of thing, and then now we got the ketogenic concept that is all the rage in athletic circles and that kind of thing. And so it's all madness, you know, it's all just playing in the sandbox, a meat induced sandbox filled with sand and meat. Let's see, Thunderbird, what's going on here? Oneness Tribe says, why after 30 years of lemon enemas is Bro Air still doing them? Surely after all this time, juice fasting, etc., there's no need. Is it just out of habit now, you reckon? So I mean, that's his practice, that's his research, his pioneering way forward. He is trying to do things in terms of, and has a vision of cleaning the body to a level that's beyond what the average person, that I would even recommend the average person even try to think about. He really wants to get into this next level kind of thing, you know, and it's hard to get into this discussion without immediately going really deep, because I avoid talking about stuff that often gets misconstrued in terms of, living on air and, these kind of discussions. He is a pioneer that, for me, I just listen to what I just listen, observe, and take note of what he's doing, what he's trying to do, trying to accomplish. It's clear, as we try to make clear, that we are not, once you get past the basics of the Mucusless Diet Healing System book, now you are a pioneer. You are, it's like when you learn how to ride a bike and you got the training wheels on, you take the training wheels off. Now you start teaching yourself tricks and things that you do to it be a lot more advanced. So the stuff he's doing is just on such a level, it's hard to talk about when you got folks that are still dealing with, like I said, the Impossible Burger and all this kind of stuff. The things that Brother Air is trying to do is very remarkable. But and he's seeing that he's got waste coming out, and that is just a perspective that he's developed, that he's watching this stuff still come out, where he's doing fast. I mean, at any given time, he really only eats solid food, if anything, 1 or 2 or 3 months out of the year, and the rest of the time is juicing or dry fasting. He's been doing more and more long-term dry fasting periods, and for the animals just keep moving that stuff out. There's the old chicken embryo example that it's in it might be in Rational Fasting. It's in one of the books, but they did an experiment years and years ago, chicken embryos, and they kept these embryos alive for many years. I think it was, and what they did was they just took the waste out of it. As long as every day they would eliminate the cellular waste. The cells produced waste, and they would remove that waste. And it was something almost 22, 23 or something years, they kept these embryos alive, and one day they didn't get that waste out of there, and the embryos died. And so I look at it kind of like that in terms of eliminating, and whether you eat or not, your cells are eliminating, and until we get ourselves to the point where the breath cleans everything, then hey, you do what you got to do. And I think too, folks they have trouble wrapping their mind around how bad of a condition we're in as human beings, so-called human beings, or should I say beings formerly known as human. Put that on a t-shirt, quote Professor Spira, beings formerly known as human, because we're not on that level. And we have generations upon generations upon generations of transitioning, physiological transformation and transmutation to get back into what we would consider would be sort of a normal state of existence, which we're so far away from, it can only be a philosophical notion at this point. So, yeah. But hey, if you don't want to do them, if you don't want to do the animal, no one's forcing you to do them. It is, as we say, the research. We're often doing research on ourselves to see what's going on. Brother Air said, "Do they have the Impossible salad?" Yeah. Well, of course they'll make cut up the burger and put it on top of the salad, and that'll be the Impossible salad. Then Oneness Tribe says, you mind addressing the question of the enema? And he's, there's some videos, if you look back at some of our old interviews, where he talks about that. We talk about the enemas in some of those, and and I kind of just addressed it just from my perspective here. Brother Air is not one to do a lot of typing, so you have to excuse him if he doesn't type you a really long explanation back on this chat here. But let's see. Rick says meat is a stimulant and suppresses the body from eliminating poisons and toxemias. A person who eats meat or any type of mucus long term will have issues at some point down the road. Yeah, so just some discussion going on. So that's good. I'm just kind of scanning through, seeing if there's some questions. I see Levi's asking about glandulars and that kind of thing. So that's a big topic. I don't know. I think I might table that one for a moment here. But yeah, I'm aware of Dr. Morris's methods there, and some of that stuff is in flux, and because when you get into that, now you're talking about really, really deep, chronic conditions. And so I tend to try to stay in the transition level, and in terms of the public things, now I'll talk a little bit more about that sometimes in the private settings and on one-on-one settings if that's something that needs to be discussed. But yeah, I might address that in the future if that comes back around again. And can't remember if I might have said something about him in Spira Speaks. I can't remember though. Let's see. Joe said, I just had Beyond Meat Burger this weekend and I felt bad. LOL. It's tough because I travel a lot with my kids, so when I have to feed them, it's tough for me to eat according to my transition. And he said, I'm glad you address it though, Professor Spira. Yeah. And and I share the fact that I've used those things and would experiment with them, and sometimes and check it out too to see, well, what can be useful. If I have to recommend something to a client, I want to recommend the best version of all of those, and so I will do a little experimentation research and see what is going to eliminate the best. I mean, for me, that's often the answer to the question when you're talking about transition diet and what foods to use and avoid. The idea of what eliminates well for you, and the way that you study that is, and this is just where you get intense into your own practice of what you're doing with the transition. You have to eat this stuff. And again, if you're using the proper methodology, you get your big raw salad, you get all those kind of things. You eat the stuff, and you will be able to tell if it's digesting or not. And sometimes maybe you need more salad stuff. Maybe you need to eat less of something or more of something else. And that's the art of the transition, and being able to really understand about these type of things. And so again, you using this stuff as a tool. And so I am going to let's see, we're going to take a quick break, listen to a little bit of music, and then we're going to come back and talk about natural hair. And it's just kind of a topic. It's just kind of been on my mind. I don't see enough people that really talk about natural hair and these kind of things, and it's a big part of Eret's philosophy and in discussion in rational fasting. There's a little bit of it in that held over into the Mucusless Diet Healing System, but and I've talked about the hair and things on a couple videos before, but I wanted to address that again because we're really trying to, when we say get in tune with nature, and then there's a lot of people talk about the antennas, that why would we cut something off that we use, that can be useful. So we'll get into that in a moment. What I'm gonna do now is I want to play a song that is so this is something, there's a group, a musical group I'm a part of called CHBG, the Chicken Hawk Bird Getters, And we do a lot of stuff where, you know, I play trombone, but I also, in this particular cut, this was something we did years ago, around maybe 2010. Went in the studio, and I'm playing the keyboard part and the trombone part on this particular cut, you know, so we layered it and everything. So this is CHBG, and I bring this up because we will be playing a week from this weekend at ComFest in Columbus, Ohio. CHBG on that Saturday. We play, I think it's around 7 o'clock on the jazz stage. We perform. That's been a tradition for many years now. We play ComFest. And then Brother Air and I also will be unveiling our duo, Professor Spira and Brother Air Fire Music Project at ComFest as well. And we play on Saturday. I think it's 420. I'll post up about that on Facebook sometime this week. But if you are in the Columbus area, you want to come and hang and check us out, we would love to see you. But here is a little CHBG. This song is called Don't Trip the Funk.
gross you out. But what if I told you that you are eating foods that create nasty slime in the body? Certain foods that you eat on a daily basis can actually cause the slime to accumulate and make it harder for your cells to breathe. These foods are making you age faster and are tearing your body apart from the inside out. These wrong foods are leaving behind residues of nasty waste that are slowly but surely shortening your lifespan, lowering your quality of life, and destroying your vitality. The good news is, this waste can be eliminated naturally. Discover the simplest and most powerful natural lifestyle secret that has improved the lives of thousands. Introducing Professor Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, annotated, revised, and edited by Professor Spira. You will learn how to naturally get rid of that annoying stuffing nose, soothe your terrible cough, melt away unwanted body fat, prevent dangerous health issues, and heal yourself of painful illnesses. If you care about your health, this is the most important book you will ever read. Visit www.mucus-free-life.com/revise-mucusless-diet to get your copy right now while supplies last.
All right, brothers and sisters, hope you enjoyed music. That was CHBG. That's me on trombone and keyboard, and Jari Smith on drums, Jariah Smith on bass, and Joey Gerwin on the percussion. And we're a fun group of guys. And like I said, also we got Brother Air and myself doing a duet on the ComFest in Columbus, Ohio. Coming up a week from this Saturday. So if you are in town or you want to come in town, come on down. We are going to have a lot of fun. Real quick, I want to give a status update on our fundraiser here. First of all, I want to profusely thank all of the folks that have donated to our GoFundMe campaign for the Professor Arnold Era Day celebration, which is going to be July 27th and 28th. The Whetstone Park of Roses Shelter House. We are going to have a great time. The fundraiser is only going to be up probably a couple more days. My goal is to release the tickets tomorrow, as I promised I'd get it at the end of this week. I wasn't able to do it for today, but tomorrow I want to try to get those tickets out there. If you're signed up for the early bird, you will get that message tomorrow at some point. I'll commit to getting that to you tomorrow. Then I will probably let everybody else know about it on Saturday. At least give the folks if signed up for the early bird a day head start to go on ahead and get those tickets, because there's a limited number of the early bird tickets. But I will mention, if I scroll way on down here to the donation levels, this is your chance. The only ones I'm going to talk about is the consultation levels. At $100, you get a 15-minute call with me and Brother Air. $200, 60-minute Mucusless Diet consultation with me or Brother Air, whoever you choose. $250, all of the above, plus I'll create a 4-week personalized menu plan for you. And at $300, all of the above, plus free enrollment in the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course. And then at the $350 level, you have two different options. And one of those options is to have all of the above plus 3 additional weekly consultations with me, plus email support, which is basically like my old monthly consultation package. You know, I haven't offered consultations in a year. I basically took a year off of doing consultations because I needed to. And so this is your chance, because I don't know when I'm going to open it up. I had promised I was going to go open them up sometime in the future, but I didn't say how long. So this is me opening them up. This is, if you want to work with me, get a consultation, we can go over, I can answer all your questions. We can go over your case study, study your case, go over your case, and really just what I'm good at is transition diet, giving you some things that you probably didn't think about that you might be able to use in your particular personal situation. And I do work with folks that have some pretty intensive illnesses, and that's a little different. You know, my approach with working with that kind of thing is a little different. But either way, hey, this is your opportunity to, you know, there's not a lot of us out here that really specialize in Professor Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System transitional methodology. There's a lot of folks that study other things that are coming from different detox backgrounds and went through different people's courses and stuff, but I don't know of really anybody else that will be able to help you with a transitional methodology, the transitional menus I put together, all that kind of stuff. And then to get access to the e-course, if you're not already in the e-course, Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course, that has everything. I mean, that is everything for level 1 of practicing the Mucusless diet. You go through the e-course, you're going to know more about the Mucusless Diet Healing System than almost anybody that's read the book. If all they've done is just read the book or heard what other people have said about the Mucusless diet, you go through that e-course and get into that studying that we do, you're going to know what's going on. So anyway, that is that. But regardless, I really appreciate everybody that donated. So I'm so thankful. I will be getting back to those of you that donated if I didn't email you yet with our tokens of appreciation or to set up the consultation meetings. I will be doing that as soon as I can. I'm just kind of overwhelmed at the moment with all kinds of stuff happening, as you can see, going on. But I definitely appreciate it, and we will be connecting very soon. And this is going to be a wonderful event. We have some great speakers, great music going to be there, and just a fellowship, just to be able to hang out with other people that practice a Mucusless Diet Healing System or are very interested in the Mucusless diet is going to be a lot of fun. So if you're on the Facebook or the YouTube, you can look down below, and there's links for all of these beautiful things that we're talking about. We got links down below for that. So what I want to do now is I'm going to play a little bit from the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course. So this is just a little excerpt. This is from lesson 23 out of the Mucusless Diet Healing System book. The section on, or the lesson on sex part 1. So he's starting to, this is where he gets into talking about motherhood and different philosophical ideas about the human experience and all that is kind of stuff. And so it gets into some deep stuff. But it talks about unnatural, it asks a question, is it unnatural to cut your hair? And he kind of gives a little bit of his perspective on that. So let me play a little bit of that for you. Is it unnatural to cut one's hair or to shave one's beard? Here it says that the beard of man is a secondary sexual organ, and that the beardless and hairless and bald men of civilization make for a second-rate sex quality partner. And he considers Judges 16 verses 13 through 20 in the Bible, where Samson, meaning a man of the sun, was granted supernatural strength by God in order to combat his enemies and perform heroic feats. Yet his two fatal flaws were what? His attraction to deceptive women and losing his hair. For it was his hair that gave him his power. And a deceptive woman named Delilah wanted to discover his weakness so that she could subdue him and take advantage of him. And so after several failed attempts, she finally was able to get Samson to divulge where he got his strength from. And he finally admitted that his hair had never been cut and that it was the source of his great strength. And ultimately she cut his hair and he lost his strength, and then she started to abuse him. For more on what Eric had to say about hair, check out what he says in Rational Fasting. There's a whole section of an article where he gets a little deeper into his philosophy about hair. And also, I get a little bit deeper into this discussion in one of my notes in the annotated Mucusless Diet. So as you notice, Eric has a lot of pictures where he's got his beard grown out, his hair's grown out. This is part of the back to nature renaissance, back to nature movement, of which Eric was a key protagonist, an influential figure in what started in the late 1800s as back to nature movement, Switzerland and Germany, among middle class, often young people, developed a countercultural movement to get away from the unnatural things that were happening as a result of industrialization, wanting to connect with the earth, connect with Mother Nature. And so they started to be interested in some of the old pagan religions that were focused on venerating the earth. You start to see nudist colonies coming up, vegetarian communes. All of this kind of energy was happening, and it came over to Southern California. Ultimately, this movement would inspire what was known as the hippie movement in the 60s, but by that time, the dietary focus in some ways had been greatly compromised. So for more on this back to nature movement and getting a little bit deeper into this, when we talk about the regeneration of humans, we start with ourselves, but then we got to come together as a community and as a family. When you start to have people that are cleaning themselves up and having children and building a community together, and eventually a nation, and eventually a group of people that will be able to really create the new humanity, the new clean humans that are just, and we say clean, but it basically just being how we're supposed to be in nature. And these are topics that we will continue to talk about for the remainder of this of these lessons, where we get a little deeper into the philosophical dynamics and things that Eric discussed. Eric says that love is the greatest power, and it is, if natural, the highest invisible food from the infinite for soul and body. All right, so that was an excerpt from the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course, and that sets up this idea that Eric gets into some depth in rational fasting. I want to continue this discussion and bring up a little bit of what Eric says here in rational fasting. So Eric says, he says, hair decapitation. Humans who are not only intellectual but also an aesthetic product of nature, the crown of creation, are being robbed of the splendid crown of their heads, the hair. They could be called the living skulls, these beardless, colorless, and expressionless heads of today. Just imagine the most beautiful woman with a pate. Where is the man or woman that would not turn away with horror or fashion a sport of today hewn in marble? In addition to that, the mustache, shaped geometrically and angular or trimmed off entirely, and then the modern clothing, which distinguishes itself from that of all the centuries by the greatest insipidity. And this we find beautiful, reasons for which the present-day man gets his beard removed and his hair cut down to a minimum length. The lack of beauty and therewith the unaesthetic appearance of hair and beard has become so general that in course of today the need of shaving and use of clippers have come as a matter of course, and our time of equalization and all it is preferred, and rightfully so, to cut off these odor and, so to speak, revelation organs of inner humans instead of furnishing by ugly, disheveled, uneven, and hereditary morbid hair. A living proof for the descendants theory. And he goes on, continues discussing this, and essentially lays out, makes a connection between the human drive to want to change change their appearance and natural hair. He makes the connection to humans getting sicker and culture thereby cultivating this kind of making things comfortable for a sick society. And so everything is opposite. That's why we use this term bizarro world. Everything is the exact opposite. So in bizarro world, when somebody sees somebody with a beard or maybe some natural hair, there is this idea of uncleanliness. When in actuality, for hair to do this, when people ask me, what did I do? What I do with my hair? I didn't do anything. My hair naturally dreads. And when I started letting my hair say go natural, honestly, I didn't think too much about it. It was an urge that I felt as I went down the Mucusless Diet path. And so, yes, I'd read the books and all that kind of stuff, but I hadn't absorbed all of that yet, really, what I just read to you. I hadn't really wrapped my mind around that yet. It wasn't that real. It was just kind of like, okay, well, that makes sense. At that point, I'm just trying to, like I said, get off of Taco Bell and stuff. So I'm not, I'm not into no heavy understanding yet of what's going on. But as I started to fast, especially when I started fasting. So when I started fasting, I had this urge to I didn't want to do that anymore. So when I shaved, I used to shave, and I remember thinking to myself how stupid this was, because I would shave and then within a couple hours it'd be itchy and it would start to be growing back and stuff. And I'm like, man, this is dumb. And what the Mucusless Diet Healing System did for me was I just got to a point where I was like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. Why am I going to hurt myself just to appease the status quo and fit in to a sick society that I no longer want to be a part of anyway? I don't want to fit into this. And so that became a way of just saying, you know what, I'm gonna let this do what it's gonna do. So I'm gonna let my hair do what it's gonna do, and we're gonna see what Eric was talking about. And the more that I fasted, it just, something about that type of consciousness and fasting tends to go hand in hand. It's, at least for me, it did, where I let it just let my hair go. Now, I will say I cut my hair once. So because when I first let my hair grow out, I didn't study it, which is, as much as I study things, for some reason I didn't study it at all. I didn't study natural hair. It was totally something that I felt that was just coming from inside, that this is what I wanted to do. This was the direction that my life was going in, and this is what felt right. This is what was natural. But I didn't do really anything. I didn't clean it properly. I was using the wrong stuff to clean it, and so I ended up with I had one big lock on the back. It was like one big dreadlock, pretty much, and it was something. But about 6 years ago, I went through a big part of my transition. I talk about it in Spira Speaks if you want to read a little bit about some of my experiences in this hardcore time. It was a tough time for me, in the diet, but it was also a beautiful time in terms of some of the revelations and things that I got out of this period. But as kind of almost a symbolic rebirth, that was the one time in the past 17 years that I cut my hair. So I had cut off my hair, And so if you go and see some of the earliest videos or not earliest, but videos from like around 2012 or 13 or something, you'll notice that you might catch one of those where I don't really have my locks, because I'd cut it off. And so since then, this has been growing as it is now. And so there's a whole lot that we could get into talking about this. The Samson thing, that's really interesting. That in the Bible there's argument to be made there for natural living. This idea of the power, like this is, these antennas, this power, the ability for hair to do this. There has to be a certain level of cleanliness, or your hair can't do that. The hair, to do that, it grows in a spiral, grows up in a spiral. And if your hair can do that, if your hair is able to do that, and it grows into a spiral, then you can have natural locks. If it doesn't, then that's a different conversation. What Eric talks about, he gets into that. But with the the Back to Nature movement and this idea of trying to create a new society, a new way of life, that when it concerns our diet and our body, we're trying to get into alignment with Mother Nature. There's a reason that we have the hair that we have. There's a reason that these things are here, but it's culture, as Eric calls civilization, so-called civilization, that starts to kind of inflict these ideas of the value systems, because those are the kinds of things that I implore you to consider and analyze. Look back at your value system and why you value the things that you do. And as you go along the Mucusless Diet Healing System, see if these values naturally change and shift. Because for me, there was a lot of things that shifted that wasn't influenced by me reading certain books or something like that, or even talking to certain people. They were internal changes that started to internally change my perception and my value system. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these things come down to value system, the way that you see the world. And when you take off the pus and mucus goggles, this world looks so different. And so I'm an advocate for, and that can be hard work. It can be, for some people, it can be painful work, because now you have to be introspective. You have to look and analyze your own. See, this is beyond just reading books. Now you are contemplating why you think the way you think. When you see somebody, your prejudices, where did that idea come from? How did that get implanted in there? When somebody says the word God, what image do you see in your head? I mean, now we can go we can get kind of deep with this, because there has been, by way of orientation, cultural orientation, there is been a Orwellian job done on us in terms of why we think the way we think. We have been conditioned to think and to think in such a way which extends to acting in such a way that fits within this society, the good, bad, and ugly. That's been programmed in. And so part of the liberation is the liberation of your consciousness and your mind, and to work through these issues, to work through this stuff, not to ignore it. That's something that I chastise some folks in the so-called New Age movements and some of these philosophical approaches to kind of a pseudo-Buddhistic type of concepts about life, of where it's just you just let everything go, and it's just the world and the stars and and everything is everything, and you only live once, and all these little things that you put on your car, bumper sticker things. I don't know, that grates on me, because I want to see fervent and conscientious analysis and contemplation of one's own thought process. Because I think that when we can start to kind of audit our thinking, and we can start to get into why do we get into some of these addictive loops. I've done that a lot with food, and figuring out the source of a particular addiction. Might be some kind of emotional issue, malady or something. Might not be a physical issue. And I talk in other places about, my practice of Sedona method and all that kind of stuff, so I won't get into that now. But the point is that I'm a revolutionary. Brother Air, we revolutionary, and we come out of that energy and that perspective of we look around and say, this society, this situation that we find ourselves in is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And so, I can't live with myself and try to delude myself into thinking that this thing out here is okay. That this is just how it is, that humans will be humans. We're a warring people living on a warring planet, and that's how it is. I do not accept that. We are an addicted people. We are people who have lost their reason because we have become too detached from nature. So what can we do to get back in line? And at the same time, because see, the thing is, and the reason that if you're practicing the Mucusless diet, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to be a revolutionary, because to really do this, some aspects of your life are going to be diametrically opposed to everything that's going on outside, or maybe things that's happening in your own home. And that's where the strength and the courage to go down this path. Again, when I come on these videos, I never lie to you and say that this is an easy thing to do, that this is a easy peasy. You never hear me say that. I would say this is a challenging commitment, a challenging path. And when you take it on, you are doing some of the most revolutionary work that's happening on the planet. So some people, they think in order to be a revolutionary, you have to, be marching with thousands of people, and we're going to overturn the government. We're doing this and all this kind of stuff. What they don't understand at this point, as me and Brother Air know some of them, we try to share this perspective, and it doesn't always go well with those folks, but go over well with them. Doing what they tell you oftentimes in elementary school, they'll say, do what you want to do, and you can be what you want to be, and do be what you want in the world, or live the way that you would want to see others live, and be that type. And then, but when you really do it and it goes against the grain, then here comes the criticisms. Here comes those that want to protect the status quo. Now you're a threat, and it's uncomfortable for them, being around you, because it's uncomfortable for filthiness to be around cleanliness oftentimes, or just even in thought process, just that intention can really irritate and bother other people that are resisting that don't want none of that. They are totally satisfied and happy with the way things are. That yes, stuff is not, around the world isn't great, but I'm safe, I'm good, I'm whatever. But then they have a stroke or a heart attack, and that connection between living what's being consumed, the way they live, and their illness is not there. That connection is not made. For me, the natural hair, all that kind of stuff, again, that it comes from inside. because I originally didn't plan on growing my hair out. When I started the Mucusless diet, that wasn't something I was thinking about. That I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to grow my hair out and I'm going to be, it's like, no, as I got deeper and deeper into the transition, that just became a call. It's like a calling. Like I was listening to the universe, and the universe saying, what are you doing? Like the last time that I really had shaved, it's like, well, man, what you doing, man? What you doing? And so it's interesting, over the past several years, there's a couple times, every once in a while, I'll never shave, like all the way shave. I'll sometimes trim a little bit, but my beard doesn't really get that big. This is my beard here, so some folks, their beard keeps growing, mine kind of stays right there. And this is a personal decision. Everybody's going to have different opinion. Everybody does different stuff in regards to this, and so this is just my opinion and my perspective, and just to say, let's look at it and look at what Eric had to say about it, and understand that, and I see that as folks get serious about the diet, and I'll notice that sometimes, not with everybody, of course, but a number of people will, in different ways, they're doing things to try to live a more natural life, and so they do, change their just little stuff. You start changing the soap that you use, or you get rid of the deodorant, and you figure something else out. I use the lemon juice air baths under my armpits to get the bacteria, the odor-causing bacteria that's there. But this is just all part of the path. These things happened over time. I didn't start off, even with changing soap. In the early days of practicing the diet, I was around, there was a couple guys that were kind of into natural products. And they were like, man, you need to, start, just try natural soap once, just to not the old nasty stuff. And I started using natural soap, and I was like, man, that does feel a lot better. It's my skin is totally different on it. And so it was just something that, just logically unfolded. Nothing was forced when it comes to that kind of thing. And so yeah, so that's that. And I just encourage people to be open. I mean, that's really what it is just be open to you might not get the same call I got. And that's fine. Because I'm not saying that anybody has to do any of that. I'm just taking a look what Eric had to say, telling you what I do and why I do it. And yeah. And so that is, it is what it is, as they say. It is what it is. Let's see here, what's going on in the chat. Let's see. Desi Bay asked about sea vegetables, which I'm over the past 4 or 5 years, I've gotten into sea vegetables. I like dulse, kelp, that kind of thing. I do like it. And that the main what's the brand's name? It starts with Maine. I forget the rest of the name, but that brand is I like it. Especially if people are having trouble getting off of salt, and they're using a lot of salt, then I tell them, man, put some dulse on there, and that will really help with that salt addiction. See, Levi asked, how much experience do you have fasting on herbal teas, and how does it compare to juice fasting? So fasting on herbal teas, I've done it a few times. I prefer, because there's herbal teas, there's the vegetable broth that Eric recommends in Rational Fasting Mucusless Diet, and you got your juice, you got your lemonade kind of stuff, and so there's that realm. But yeah, fasting on the herbal teas, I've done it a number of times, but I don't know. I just prefer juice fasting. I didn't necessarily see any huge difference, or I guess we're talking about tools. For me, that as a tool hasn't been something that I would go to. Hasn't been a go-to tool. So I checked it out, but it's not really for me to do a lot of that right now. You talk to me a year from now and I might check it out again and be something that I'm really using or something. But right now, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of just specifically doing fasts on herbal tea. Now combining having herbal tea as one of the fasting drinks. So maybe you might be some herbal tea early on in the day, some juice in the afternoon, and some vegetable broth in the evening or something like that. That's a little different. That's a little different story. But just doing that by itself, just nothing but the herbal tea, not a huge fan of that. Mr. Bollyby, what's going on? Professor Spira, brother, Aaron, practitioners, hope you are well and getting better, if not. Indeed. Let's see. Desi Bay, Eric moved to Alhambra, California. Yes. And let's see. Levi said, what did Eric think about ejaculation / tantra? So he didn't talk about tantra in terms of ejaculation. He's looking at the control and the loss of control. Sort of, it's kind of this idea of control as well as when there is this need to constantly go at it like that. There's a connection between that and a certain level of constipation. And it would make sense if you're real constipated or you're eating in a way that's taking you down this negative rabbit hole, that you're gonna have some uncontrollable passions. You're gonna have some things that's gonna want to eliminate. So that would take a while to. I could maybe in another video I'll get a little deeper into that, and we'll go bring those texts up and kind of look at where Era does talk a little bit about the seed, the preservation of the seed. As Eric, I think, put it. And so he was in theory, and again, these is like in theory and philosophy, that was the idea of the preservation of the seed, but more so that control. That's where we would want to be. But in practice, we don't know what he did, and everybody does different practices. I don't recommend any particular thing when it comes to that, because that's something that you got to figure out for yourself. Brother Air did 10 I guess about 10 years where he was celibate. I did about 10 years being celibate myself. But I don't talk about that or recommend that or anything. I could care less what folks do with their private time and their private life, whatever. Transition, my message, transition diet. I'm gonna stick to that and I'm gonna kind of get out of those weeds because it gets real emotional real quick for a lot of people when you start getting into some of that stuff. And so what I find is that dealing with the transition is going to help you move through various stages to get to a point of control. See, my personal thing is probably control. The ability to, if you want to do something, you can do what you want to do, where you don't have any dysfunction, but you have control. And so that's it's an interesting topic. We can get a little deeper into that at some point. And RC says, yes, natural hair. We don't have to change ourselves to fit in, just to make others comfortable. Indeed. And let's see. Here's Rick saying the quote from Eric. I think the fact is that we are all, the love vibrations. We are all, with very few exceptions, the cause of stimulants instead of love vibrations exclusively. Procreation is the most holy and divine act, and charged with or act that man is charged with. And so that's it's a heavy responsibility, super deep. I mean, that's a topic that I could do a whole episode on that, and the idea of wanting to have children that have children that have children that are themselves a part of the transition. That is the transition of humanity. See, transition happens on all different kinds of levels. And so there's the transition of your personal diet, but you're also transitioning the society and the culture. If you have a child and that child has a child and that has, and so on and so forth, that is a transition of humanity, where you are transitioning not only your own blood, but your bloodline. And the transition of the bloodline is a serious transition. And that's essentially Eric gets into his thoughts on that in those sex lessons of which we're talking about. But it's deep, and it's a powerful thing to understand, and to understand we can't do it all by ourselves. And we're not going to get it all done in this so-called life or whatever. That's why I talk so much about transition, to put the transition into perspective. And if you feel it, if you feel this urge of what we're talking about to create a society, we got to do it ourselves. It ain't going to be done for us, and we can't wait for someone else to do it. We got to start doing it. But it first starts with us changing our diet, transforming our physiology, and then our family, the parts of the family that we control, that we create from here on out. And that is a formula for the new humanity. And that's that's something that a lot of us are interested in trying to work on. Let's see, Rick. There's more quotes from that portion of the book. Yeah, keeping the germ, an idea of modern substance will nourish man's brain. Her high protein substance is absurd. Love is the greatest power, and it is, if natural, the highest invisible food from the infinite for soul and body. Indeed. So there's some deep stuff there. So I think we're gonna start wrapping this episode up. And I didn't get a chance to take calls today. Well, maybe so we won't do calls today. We'll maybe do calls. I won't do it maybe every week. We'll see. I'm still experimenting. I'm getting the format down of what feels good, the length, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. No, I'm reading. Levi says, guess Eric didn't believe in preservation of the seed. Well, I mean, he believed in which is more, would be on a higher level than just preservation. His thing is preservation of humanity and creating beings, children and children's children, that are so much more physiologically advanced than we are, and perhaps than we can be. And when you get a momentum going with that, now you're talking about a nation of people that don't know what disease is. And so I think, as far as that goes, that trumps, that kind of, that the personal, and then that would be, argument where everybody comes with different things based on spiritual beliefs and all that kind of stuff. But the creative ability to make humans, to make a nation of humans that are transitioning toward true humanhood, is probably the most advanced thing that we can do. That's my opinion at this point. but there's an understanding that shouldn't be rushed. With Brother Air, he was celibate for 10 years, and then when he started to put his family together, it was around the Mucusless Diet Healing System, and he wanted to raise a child on the Mucusless diet. So there was a plan involved. It wasn't just plan free. And so it's a deep thing that, like I said, we get on that topic and be talking for a long time. But I think, to me, it's about if the benefit of if there's a benefit of preservation of seed concept, it is until you are at a state of cleanliness where you can be authorized by the universe to procreate, to at a point when it becomes rational and necessary to do so. But you want to be, you want to have a certain level of mastery, in my opinion, if you can. There's a lot of folks already got kids. I'm just talking in philosophically speaking. It would be good to have a level of mastery with your own transition and physiology beforehand, because I've noticed this a couple times where there will be parents that are not practitioners in the Mucusless diet, but they want to put their kids on the diet. And I often recommend them, tell them, don't do that, because you need to first get yourself on the diet, because your ability to transition any other being is going to be based on your knowledge and your understanding and experience of transition and the logic that is a part of that thought process that can be applied to another human being. And like I talk about sometimes, just to give an example of transition, we all transition. All children, babies transition from liquid diet to more solid food to more complex forms of solid food, and in pus and mucus world, you transition into a certain level of pus eating and mucus eating. So the transition is everywhere. Most of the time when folks get older, at a certain age, after the body has been kind of broken down by way of eating habits and things like that, the diet changes again. There's a transition back toward a liquid diet. And so these transitions are here whether you like it or not, or want them to be or not. The question is, who can master them? Who can master these natural occurrences, this natural dynamic of transition? The transition is natural to the extent that we've gotten ourselves in this mess. We've gotten ourselves in this mess of eating things that are kind of outside of the realm of nature, and we're hurting ourselves. It's like it's fun and games until someone dies, someone gets a terminal illness or something like that. And so we're saying, let's do better. Let's get the transition going. Let's take things to a whole different level and try to, just try to really transform our society, transform ourselves. And that's I think what we're trying to do. I want to share this video in case you haven't seen it. This is let me bring it up here. This is from, so a couple days ago, me and Brother Air did a video, and Brother Air, he said this phrase and it sounded like a song to me, and so then I created this.
Simplistic. That's simple, man.
Right,
get a little sun, breathe a little air.
Right.
That's as free as you can get.
Get down tonight.
Get a little sun, breathe a little air.
Get down tonight. Get down tonight. Get a little sun.
Get a little sun.
Breathe a little air. Get down tonight.
It doesn't get no better than that.
Right. So I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was funny, and yeah, that was pretty fun. And let's see, Rick says, thank you for your time, Professor Spira. I've been really enjoying these podcasts while making juices and salads. Well, I appreciate you for tuning in, and I appreciate all of you for tuning in. These have been a lot of fun to make, and I want to keep going with them. So again, you can check the link down below and see things happening, like I said, the last couple of days for the fundraiser. If you want to get a consultation, shoot us a donation at the proper level, and you can get a little one-on-one session going on. The tickets for the Arid Day celebration will go on sale starting tomorrow and going into the weekend. The early bird pricing of the tickets, so you're going to want to jump on that immediately. And also, and be sure you have all the books. We got seven books now that you can get. We got the Ultimate Bundle. There's a link down below for that. If you just want to be on the mailing list and make sure that you get our notifications and newsletters and all that kind of stuff, you can also sign up for that down below. So this has been a wonderful pleasure, as always, plugging in with you, and we can really change this world. I truly believe that we really can change it for the better. People say that all the time, we're going to change the world, but permanent transformation starts with you and being able to control what you put into your body. So again, I thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, peace, love, and breath.
We are mucus free.